Who wants to work longer than they have to? Absolutely, Gina. I love it. Kansas City, California, good old Hurricane, Utah here, not too far away from our corporate headquarters. And now, real quick, that's how you can tell if someone's local to Southern Utah is how they pronounce that city name. If they call it Hurricane, you're like, nope, that's like, you're not local. It's got to be Hurricane. And then that's how you can tell if somebody's local. I like it. Salt Lake. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Utah, LA, Massachusetts. Awesome. Marty, I like it. You want to be able to retire by 103. Okay, I think we can hit that goal. Unless you're already like 102, which I don't think you are, then I think that we'll probably be in good shape. I'm gonna probably get a little bit excited, and so I don't want to have the mic too close because there's like a good chance I'm gonna like knock it over or something. So with that being said, we are here to talk about the 3-year plan versus the 30-year plan. And, one of the amazing things that we do around here is that we help people get results, and we help people get results quickly, oftentimes 5 to 10 times faster with what is actually simple and innovative approaches. And honestly, the middle class approach, or the traditional financial advice type of approach to creating residual income, is a 30-year plan where you're scrimping and saving and living on ramen noodles and doing all that crazy stuff for 30, maybe even 45 years. And then by the end of that time, you're hoping and praying that market shifts or taxes or inflation or a host of other risks don't just destroy your retirement. And who wants to live like that if there's a better way? And I'm here to tell you that there is a better way. So with that being said, how many of you, let me ask we'll do a quick poll, and we will be doing some Q&A a little bit later today, just so you guys know. How many of you are already wellness partners by raise of hand? Okay. How many of you are not wellness partners, or you're like, I don't know what that is? Okay. A few people. Okay. Alrighty. Awesome. That helps me to know. So with that being said, you will get an idea of why these people are so excited to share this with you. Now, first things first, let's say a little bit of a disclaimer. So some of the financial results that we're going to mention today, they are not typical, but they can be very predictable. And this is something that our legal team tells us that we need to say this type of stuff whenever we're talking about numbers and finance, that we got to say results are not typical, right? So with that being said, do you all feel disclaimed? Is that, okay, sweet. All right. That's enough legalese for today. Okay. So here's the thing. As we're getting started, I've got to warn you about something. Some of the things that you see here today, you're going to feel a little bit like this. What you're going to see here today, what's been seen, cannot be unseen. Now, what in the world do I mean by that? Is that what I'm going to share with you today literally initiated a career change for me. It initiated me saying like, holy smokes, this is not the direction that I want to keep going in. I need to shift gears and go over here, right? And so if some of our conversation causes you to rethink some strategies that maybe you've been committed to for a long time, first off, that's okay. Second off, like, I feel you. I literally sold a business and did all kinds of things once I realized some of this stuff. Now, during the course of this conversation, it's going to sound a little bit like I'm probably giving financial advisors a bit of a hard time. And I want you to know that I have a tremendous amount of respect for financial advisors those advisors whose intent is to genuinely serve their clients and help people succeed and win financially. And I do think that they're doing some great work out there to help people accumulate money, even if I don't agree with all the methods and approaches of how that's done. I do think that they're doing a great service for people. But I actually come from the world of financial services. I'm actually a former financial advisor. And in fact, I've got a gentleman who's on the call here who used to be one of my clients when I was in financial services. And once I understood some of this stuff, I realized that I couldn't keep being a financial advisor. And I kind of felt a little bit like this cat here. And the more I learned about these worlds of money, and the deeper I got into the world of financial services, I got clear that I couldn't in good conscience keep pursuing the path that I was on. And let me share what I mean by that. So if you go to a financial advisor and you say to them, hey, I would love to get your help in building a financial plan. They're probably going to be like, great, totally happy to help you. And you're like, and by the way, just make it so that I'm retired in like 3 to 5 years. Like first off, their response is probably going to be like, you can't be serious. And then they're going to be like, well, do you have like a couple million already saved up? Because then I can probably hit that 3 to 5 year target, right? You're going to have gobs and gobs of money in the traditional approaches to creating financial freedom or residual income or retiring. You're going to have tons of money to be able to hit that type of a target. And so most financial advisors would tell you that this is impossible. It's not a thing that you can even do, that you can't even consider it. But we're going to show you with some math and some science of exactly how that can work. Now, I recognize that that's a bold claim to even talk about a 3-year plan, but I think that by the end of this, you're going to be like, okay, I can get results 5 to 10 times faster. Now, I will also say that if you stick around to the end, that I'm going to share something with you that is going to pretty much guarantee being able to put anywhere from a couple $100 to a couple $1,000 back in your pocket if you stick around to the end, and I'll share that with you. Now, if you don't already, grab something to write with, grab a notebook, grab a pen, get your iPad, whatever you're going to do, but also close out other distractions, close out Facebook, close out anything that could be distracting to you. I've got my phone turned off. And make sure that you just take a moment to get focused, because this is something that could literally change your life. Now, what I'm about to share here is something that's come to have a lot of meaning for me. And this is something that I've learned from someone who's become my mentor. His name is Brandon Broadwater. And this is a gentleman that when I first heard this message, I was like, this is something that resonates with me. And I had seen some similar kinds of things. I had read books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'd studied lots of different things. But then when I really started to understand this symbol that I'm about to share with you, it was truly a life-changing thing for me, because it articulated something that I had never been able to put into words. And so this thing that I'm about to share you is something called the Prosperity Quadrant. And the Prosperity Quadrant is this, to where in that top left-hand corner, we've got a P, and that P stands for poor. Now, I'm going to use some financial terms here, but one of the reasons why this is so impactful for me is that it's not just a financial quadrant. This can help us understand where we're at with our mindset. This can help us understand where we're at in our friend group and our environment, those people that we surround ourselves with. This can even help us identify where we're at and how we approach life. So we've got this first top left-hand quadrant, which stands for poor. Then we have an M, which stands for middle class. In the top right-hand corner, we've got the rich. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, we have an A, which stands for abundant. Now, the reason why this is so impactful is that each one of these is literally like a world of money. And it being a world of money, it has a gravitational pull. It has a gravitational effect to it. So if you grow up around people who are living in poverty, there is going to be a certain mindset associated to that. If you grow up in a middle class type of an environment, there's going to be probably, in my opinion, an even stronger pull and gravitational effect to that. And my friend Brandon, who went on to become my mentor, taught me about these 4 worlds of money, and that how the people on the left-hand side of the quadrant, the poor and middle class, they operate totally differently than those people on the right-hand side of the quadrant. And here's the thing, most people only know about maybe 1 or 2 of these quadrants, but they maybe believe that, oh, well, if you're rich, then you got rich by ripping people off. Or if you made your money, you made your money by doing something that's shady or something like that. Or maybe they think that those people who are rich are just lucky, right? But when we think about the prosperity quadrant here, what the takeaway is where do you live? Where, whether it be financially, whether it be in your mindset, whether it be in how you approach life. Are you coming from a poor or a poverty type of mindset? Are you coming from a middle class or maybe a mediocre type of a mindset? Are you coming from a rich and resourceful type of mindset? Or are you coming from an abundant mindset? Now, what do I mean by abundant? You see, abundance is being able to choose options in life. And you can be poor and abundant, you can be middle class and abundant, you can be rich and abundant. It's ultimately up to you in how you want to live your life. But what it means to be abundant is not only having the things that money can buy, but probably more importantly, the things that money can't buy. Things like having a bonded relationship with your family or loved ones. Things like being able to experience, joy and happiness and fulfillment in life. Because how many of you know someone who maybe has been super rich and they are miserable? Does anyone know someone like that? I know a few, right? Or how many of you, and this is kind of like what I would say a typical middle-class mindset, where someone says like, oh, I don't need money to be happy. Has anyone ever heard that? Right? Here's the thing, when people say stuff like that of like, I don't need money to be happy, while that's true, when people say stuff like that, I can almost guarantee that they are spending the vast majority of their time, their waking hours, some of their prime time, they're trading their time for dollars. They're spending the vast majority of their time working for money. And so when someone says, oh, money's not important, or I don't need money to be happy, like, well, that's kind of like a half truth. And so if we can stop playing games and just recognize that money is important, money is something that we do need to actually focus on and have an understanding of how it works, then we can start to understand the rules of the game. And are you ever going to be able to win the game if you don't know the rules? No, you're never going to know all that stuff. And so when I started to understand these worlds of money that Brandon taught me about, I started to see the world differently. And I knew that not only did I want to be on this right-hand side of the quadrant to be rich, but I also wanted to be abundant, because I had followed some mentors. I had followed some people who were just rich. And what had they left in their wake? They had left a string of broken relationships. They had left a string of like just kind of destruction in their wake, where they weren't living the type of life that I wanted to live. And Brandon shared with me that it was possible to not only be able to make great money, but also make an impact on planet Earth. And how many of you want to make an impact while you're here walking the face of this planet? I love that. I love that. That's what it means when we talk about being abundant. That's what we're talking about, is being able to make an impact, not just having money, but being able to have a purpose. Now, when I learned about these four worlds of money, it made me realize something. It made me realize this quote from Thomas Merton, that maybe you've heard a similar version of this quote. But Thomas Merton, who is a well-known author, he said this: people may spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success, only to find that once they reach the top, that ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. Oh, that's powerful, right? Does anyone want to find themselves in that situation where you've climbed that ladder and then you realize it's leaning against the wrong wall? Now, Dr. Stephen Covey, the well-known author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, said, if the ladder is not leaning against the right wall, every step we take just gets us to the wrong place faster. And I don't know about you, but that's not something that I want to do, right? That's not something that how I want to approach things. And so how does this apply to this prosperity quadrant? How does this apply to the poor, middle class, the rich, and the abundant? Well, let's break it down. The poor and middle class, they work at a job, earn income, and they trade their time for money. We've talked a little bit about this. What do the rich and abundant do? The rich and abundant work and invest their time to build this thing called residual income. Now, what's residual income? Residual income is where you have money that's coming in that you don't have to be there every waking moment to do that. And I've owned businesses and been a part of businesses to where if I was not there, it was impossible for me to make money. Has anyone else experienced that type of a scenario, right? Where it was literally not even possible. If you didn't show up to work, you weren't punched in, you couldn't make any sort of money. The rich and the abundant, they invest their time to build residual income. Now, the poor and middle class, again, on the left-hand side here, it says that they are at risk to lose all of their income if a job is lost. But what about the rich and the abundant? The rich and abundant, they know how to recreate an income if an income stream is lost. How many of you have heard a variation of this thought of that if you were to like take all of the money that's in the world and equalize it out, like give everyone the same amount of money, that it would all be back into the hands of people who are already wealthy within just a matter of time? Has anyone ever heard that before? Why is that? It's because those people who are rich and abundant, they have systems, they have processes, they have an approach that they know that works. I was listening to a video from a well-known author, Brian Tracy, recently, and he was talking about when he made his first $1 million, he was like, that was the hardest million to make because I had to become someone different. I had to change my habits. I had to change my approach. I had to do things differently than I did before. And he said, but guess what? My second million, my third million, and so on and so forth, it wasn't as hard because he had become the type of person that could make that kind of money. And so when you become rich and abundant, you know how to create income. And that's one of those components. Now, going back to the left-hand side of the quadrant here, the poor and middle class, they are at risk for losing their nest egg from market downturns, inflation, taxes, legislative risk, all kinds of things. And this is one of the things that killed me about me being a financial advisor, is that a person in the middle class could do everything right. They could save for 30 to 45 years. They could check all of the boxes. They could do everything right. And then they could be 64 years old, ready to retire at 65. And then 2008 could happen again. And people who thought they had $1 million in their nest egg now have $400,000. And now, to me, that's devastating. And the reason why that's devastating is there's no reset button. You can't go back in time and say, oh, do over. I want to reset that. And that's the challenge with the middle class approach to traditional financial planning and traditional financial advice, is that you don't know if it works until the end. My friends, that is a bad plan. If you have to wait until the very end to see if it works, that's not a good plan. You need to be able to tell if you're able to make it work along the way, right? And not have, because here's another thing to consider. What about taxes? What happens if Congress changes tax law and you've got $1 million saved up, but then all of a sudden they're like, hey, we're going to change how we tax your 401k. And then again, you thought you had $1 million. Nope. IRS gets their chunk of change, right? When I started to realize these things, I was like, I can't in good conscience do this traditional approach that everyone says is a good idea. But what do the rich and the abundant do? They build wealth through creating businesses around high demand products and services. Now, what about the poor and middle class? They scrimp and save to fund their 401ks and other accounts for retirement. The rich and abundant, they use leverage and they create value to pay for their retirement or to fund their financial freedom. And the last thing I'll mention is that the poor and middle class, as a percentage of their income, they actually pay the highest taxes as a percentage of their income. Whereas the rich and abundant, they use the tax code for their benefit to reduce taxes. And I could go on a tangent about this all day long, but Donald Trump took some heat a few years back during presidential debates when people are like, oh, you didn't pay any money for taxes. And he's like, yeah, that makes me smart. And like that made so many people upset. And he's like, no, I just understand how the tax code works. And now I'm not saying for or against Donald Trump. That's not at all. It's hard to even say that man's name without creating a polarizing situation. But what I'm saying is that Donald Trump understood the tax code, that there's nothing like super honorable about paying more taxes than you should, right? But the rich and abundant understand the tax code, and the tax code actually works differently for the rich and abundant than it does for the poor and middle class. And that's one of those things that when you understand that, if you stick around to the end, we'll talk about what that looks like. And you can see how you can pretty much guaranteed put an extra couple hundred or couple $1,000s in your pocket when you understand the tax code. So with that being said, I've got one more thing. The poor and middle class, they don't have control because the risk is out of it's out of their hands, right? If you're a shareholder, like if you own stock in Facebook, for example, and Facebook just took a nosedive in the stock market just recently, what are you going to do? You're going to write a strongly worded letter to Mark Zuckerberg and say, hey, bud, I think that you really should be managing that company differently. I'm disappointed in you, young man, right? Like, you don't have control. But on the rich and abundant side of the quadrant, you do have control, because in business and when you approach things with a rich and abundant lifestyle, you can create levers of control, which is super powerful. So now I've got a question for you. How many of you have seen Jurassic Park? Right? So now there's this great line here where after, like in the movie, they're kind of getting a tour of the park and they see these dinosaurs, right? And like they're excited, and like the business guys, the investors are all super excited, and they're sitting down with Dr. Ian Malcolm, who's played by Jeff Goldblum, who you see here. And after Jeff Goldblum has like seen these crazy dinosaurs that they've recreated, brought back to life, he says this powerful line. And he's not super happy about it, about this whole scenario where dinosaurs have been recreated. He says, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they never stopped to think if they should. Now, how does this apply? I feel like this is where financial advisors and those people in the traditional financial advising or traditional financial services world, this is where they get stuck. They're so preoccupied operating within these certain parameters that they never stop to even ask if they need to operate within those parameters in the first place. They never need, like they're playing by the rules of a game without realizing there's an entirely different game that can be played altogether. So when I said, if you go to your financial advisor and say, hey, write me up a plan where I can be retired in 3 to 5 years, most of them are just going to laugh at you because they don't think that that's even a possibility, because they have all of these different constraints. But when you realize that those constraints are more perceived than real, then my friends, you have control, you have power, you have some amazing things that start to work in your favor. And to me, I realized as a financial advisor that the whole financial system that the middle class follows was the equivalent of the ladder leaning against the wrong wall. And so let me ask you a question. What is the purpose? And I'd love to see in the chat, what do you feel like the purpose of retirement is, or achieving financial freedom? Like, when you boil it down, what's the purpose of it all? Like, how would you define it? What is it? Why do people want to retire? Why do people want to have financial freedom? Let me know in the chat. Okay, Kimberly says choices. I like it. Sean said having money working for you. I like it. Jill says live the lifestyle we want. Monique says freedom, to be able to enjoy life. Time freedom. I love it. I love it. Enjoy life without having to worry about money coming in. Udana. I love it. Spot on. And I think that with what Udana said, yeah, keep those coming. With what Udana said, that's kind of the main purpose of retirement, right? To where you don't have to go in and punch a clock and work a job, that you can do what you want, and the money thing is kind of figured out. The money thing is happening. Now, I'm one of those individuals that I'm on my way to creating that financial freedom, and I've been fortunate to be able to make some good strides in that direction. But even when I hit that step, and I'm on track to hit that in the next few years, I'm still going to be making an impact. I'm still going to be around here doing the kind of things that I'm doing because I love what I do. And so for me, the impact doesn't just stop when my residual income surpasses my expenses. I'm still here to make an impact. And so what I believe retirement is about, or financial freedom is about, is that you can live the lifestyle that you want, and that you can be able to do the things that you want, the things that fulfill you, the things that make you happy, whether that's serving in your church or your community, or spending more time with your family, and that you don't have to be worried about money or punching a clock to have that money coming in. Now, when we start thinking about that, how many of you are like, that gets me excited? That gets me pumped up to start to think in those kind of terms. Now, how many of you are excited to say, okay, well, Mitch, I've been told that the target is 30 years away from me, or a decade away, or however far away you are from retirement. If we could bring that target closer, would that be exciting to you? Yeah, I love it. Okay. So if you have a metric focused business, I'm telling you, you can create the freedom that you want, and you can have a business that works for you, whether you're there, whether you're not there all the time, and you can still make an impact in the world. Now, when I said that the middle class and traditional financial advice has their ladder leaned against the wrong wall, here is what I mean. Here on this left-hand side, you see these words accumulation and depletion, as well as one-time income. The whole financial system is built around accumulation and depletion. And what do I mean by that? I mean that people spend 30 to 45 years accumulating this big pile of money. And then the way that they retire is that over time, they deplete that pile of money, because gone are the days of, unless you have a massive nest egg, gone are the days of being able to live off the interest. A lot of people used to talk about the 4% rule, which now the financial professionals are saying like, it really probably should be more like the 2% rule, meaning you used to be able to, if you had a big enough nest egg, you could live off of 4% of the interest. If you're getting at least 4% interest on your nest egg, you could live off of it. But now they're saying, that needs to be your nest egg needs to be double. You can't live off of 4% of interest. You need to live off of 2% of the interest now. So just go and make an extra couple $1 million and then you'll be okay. Right? Now, that's just not a reality for the vast majority of people to be able to just quote unquote make an extra couple $1 million. Like that's, there's a few people on this call who probably could do that, but the vast majority of people can't. And so it's built into the system with traditional financial advice to have a big pile of money and then to deplete it. But on the right-hand side of the quadrant, cash flow and residual income, you don't have to deplete the nest egg, because it's like the golden goose. How many of you remember the children's story of like the golden goose that lays the golden eggs? Yeah. Now, depending on which version of the story you heard, the version of the story that I heard was that there's this golden goose that would every so often lay a golden egg. And the king of this kingdom had the golden goose, and every so often it would lay a golden egg, and it was just amazing. But then over time, that king passed away, and his son inherited the golden goose. And the son got to thinking, and the son was like, now this goose only lays a golden egg like every so often. I want to get that faster. I want that golden egg faster. And so this foolish son kills the golden goose, thinking that if he kills the golden goose, he could open it up and there would be all these golden eggs in there. Well, is that really how it works? Not so much, right? But that's how the middle class and traditional financial advice, that's what it's telling you to do, is it's telling you to build up this big nest egg and then kill the golden goose. That doesn't make sense when you start to understand what residual income looks like. Residual income is that if you've got a golden goose, you're gonna be like, all right, let's feed it like quality organic materials. Let's make sure it's got a nice comfy bed, because like I want to increase the production of that golden goose, right? I want those, like if I want more golden eggs, like I'm going to create a killer environment to help that golden goose foster, right? And so let's take some quick examples of different industries of how you can have the same industry, but there's two different approaches to it. To where you could have a one-time income type of thing in real estate is you could be a real estate agent. But on the right-hand side, you could be a real estate investor, to where you have rental properties that pay you residual income and cash flow. If you're in the livestock business, you could be a rancher, where you send all of your livestock off to the slaughterhouse at the end of the season. But then on the right-hand side of the quadrant, you could be a dairy farmer. Again, it's the same thing. It's the same business, but it comes down to the mindset. It comes down to the approach. It comes down to the systems. And so when we think about all of this stuff, there's three critical elements that are needed to make this transition to create residual income, to go from the left-hand side of the quadrant to the right-hand side of the quadrant. And what we call that around here is we call that a transition to greatness. And those three critical elements that are needed, does anyone want to know? Or are you like, nah, I'm good? Okay, I need to make sure that you're still awake, right? That those three critical elements that are needed is this thing called energy. Because does it take energy? Does it take health? Does it take vitality to reach your goals, to reach your dreams in life? Yes or no? Yeah? Does it take that? Yeah, it does. The other critical element that's needed is a financial vehicle, right? Because what we talked about, this financial vehicle that the poor middle class have been using for the past few decades doesn't really work out so well in today's economy. And then the third thing that you need is this thing called the duplication model. Now, for the sake of time and for the sake of this presentation, we're going to lightly touch on number 1 and 3. And the main focus of what we're talking about today is this financial vehicle, hence why the title of our conversation today is the 3-year versus the 30-year plan. And so the reason why we're talking today is that this mentor that I mentioned, this guy who showed me this prosperity quadrant that taught me these things, he decided a few years ago that he needed to create a company, create a platform to help people make the transition from the left-hand side of the quadrant to the right-hand side of the quadrant. And he needed to create this platform to deliver on those 3 things, right? Because there's a lot of different ways that you could try and hit those marks. But if you have one cohesive way, a cohesive platform, a company that is built to be the platform to provide that, then you're going to be much more successful. And so this company called Zallevo was born a few years ago. And we are so excited at what we've been able to do, how we've been able to make an impact in the world. And really what we do here is that we fulfill on those 3 elements needed to become rich and abundant. And how we do that is through these things we call master formulations. Now, these are products, or we call them master formulations. Like I said, this is a life-giving product line. And I'm going to spend maybe all of 60 seconds explaining what the heck this is for those of you who may not be familiar, is that these are nutritional products and supplements, and this isn't some sort of like flash in the pan, as this isn't some sort of fly by night or miracle potions, pills, and blah, 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 blah. This is actually food and nutrition that your body needs to survive that literally you can't get. In fact, Robert Arthur, who is on the call today, he posted a great article recently about how the topsoils in America are like totally depleted of minerals. And so the food that we eat is depleted of nutrients. And so you can eat food and it's not actually doing what it's supposed to. You're not getting the nutrients from it that your body actually needs to thrive, right? And so these incredible master formulations are designed to give your body what it needs to thrive. And these are helping people get life-changing results. And I can see a few people on the call today who have already got life-changing results from these master formulations. If you're one of those people who you feel like you've got life-changing results from these master formulations, go ahead and raise your hands. Right? All right. I'm seeing some good hands raised. So for those people who want to lose weight, the amazing thing is these same formulations that help someone lose weight is the same formulation that helps someone build muscle. That same formulation that helps someone feel mental clarity and energy again. The same form, like it's from supporting gut health to having rejuvenate hair, skin, nails, all kinds of things. These master formulations are absolutely amazing. And if you want to learn more about them, that's kind of outside the scope of our conversation today. Reach out to the person who invited you to this call, to this event, and they can tell you more about it. They can share some videos, they can share some resources to talk about these life-changing master formulations. Does that sound fair? Okay, cool. So now there's a term that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the call of a wellness partner. And some people may not know what a wellness partner is. And so if you're not familiar, a wellness partner is someone who's decided to partner with Zallevo and share those master formulations that I was just talking about. Now, when you become a wellness partner, you don't have to fill up your garage with Zallevo master formulations. And unless you're doing food storage, which it makes for great food storage. So unless you're doing that, we don't encourage inventory loading or someone to just like buy up all kinds of stuff, right? But a wellness partner is someone who makes an impact in people's lives, and they can choose to work with customers, which we call VIPs. That's what we call our customers. Or they can choose to work with customers and build a team if they want to. There's flexibility in the approach. So that's what a wellness partner is for anyone who may be wondering. Now, to operate different vehicles, you got to know different language, right? And so now I'm kind of shifting gears to, we talked about element number one that's needed to transition, right? And that's energy. That's what those master formulations do. So let's talk about element number two, the financial vehicle. The financial vehicle, like if you're going to operate a vehicle, you need to know the language that comes with the territory. And if you're going to operate a motorcycle, there's specific terms and language that you need to be familiar with to operate a motorcycle. If you're going to operate a car, same way. There's specific language and terms that you need to know to operate that. If you're going to operate a boat or a plane, there's certain language that you need to know to be able to operate that efficiently. Does this make sense? Right? That kind of makes sense. So there's two terms that I want to introduce you to help this make sense. And then we're going to show you how you can make your first, if you haven't already, your first $500 residually on a monthly basis and beyond. So this is, man, it's just getting good. So the first term that I want to share with you is this term called VIP volume, or VV. Now, VV or VIP volume, and this is important, you're going to want to like write this down, because otherwise you're going to get lost, and you're going to, as I start showing you these numbers, and you're going to get really excited, but then you're going to be like, wait, I don't understand the foundation. So this is important. So VIP volume, or VV, this is kind of like gross revenue. So if you have a customer who comes in and decides to buy some of these incredible master formulations, this is like the gross revenue from your customer's orders. That's what VV is. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm seeing some head nods. Now, with gross revenue, like in any sort of business, that's the amount of money that comes in before expenses, right? And then you've got some expenses as a business owner. And Zallevo is no different here. And so we have what's called commissionable volume, or CV. Now, commissionable volume is the amount of volume that all of your commission percentages are based on. And this is kind of like net profits after you pay for overhead expenses and things like that. That's what your CV is. So let me give you an example of what that means, like what that looks like. So we've got different collections, which is kind of like a fancy term for just packages of some of our products where you can bundle them together. We've got the basics collection, we've got the essentials, the ultimate, and the duo collection. And on each of these, so the basics, for example, has VV of 200, but what does a consumer actually pay? They pay 197, right? And so we bumped up the VV on that to make it a nice round 200. And we did that in the benefit of the wellness partner, right? So that they didn't have to do crazy math of sevens and all that kind of stuff, so that they could just have nice round numbers. So the VV and the subscribe and save price here, those are very, very similar. Does that make sense? Is that clear, people? Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up. And if you have questions, we can cover those here in just a moment. So with that being said, it's really important that you understand that, because now we're going to start talking about how this works. Okay, so fast to 500. Now this is the fastest way that you can get to $500 residual, and then we're going to talk about how to go beyond that. How many of you want to know how you can make $500 residually? Like, is that going to hurt your feelings? Are you going to be upset about that? Okay, I don't see anyone trying to throw rocks at me yet. Okay, cool. So now that we know what VV means, this is why this is important, is that Zallevo has built a financial vehicle that is tied into this VV volume, or your customers' orders, like the revenue that your customers bring in, right? And so if you have at least 200 of VV, 200 VIP volume, 200 customer orders, and that could just be someone buying one basics collection like we just showed. When you have at least 200 VV, then that unlocks a 10% commission on that, and it's 10% of the CV. If you have 500 of VV, then that unlocks 15%. If you have 1,000 of VV, that unlocks 20%. And if you have 1,500 of VV, that unlocks 25%. Now, if you're like someone, I see a few people screenshotting this. If you're not familiar with this, I encourage you to probably screenshot it, because this is an important piece to understand. And when I started to understand this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So these are the residual income tiers from customers purchasing incredible master formulations that are honestly just, it's food. Do any of you know people who eat? I'm only seeing like 3 hands go up. Like, okay, okay, just wanted to make sure. So you all know some people who actually eat food. Okay, does anyone on this call, like, it might be embarrassing, but does anyone on this call also eat food? Okay, all right. Okay, we're friends. We can have these kind of personal conversations. Okay, awesome. So now, how does this work when we start stacking up some of these numbers? And our goal right now is the fastest way to get to 500 of residual income. So let's say that this is you're this diamond right here, and then you have 3 VIP customers who come in, 3 people who decide to come in with volume or revenue, if you will, of 500 each. And this volume or this revenue, so someone could literally come in on an ultimate collection, which is basically one of all of the incredible master formulations, which is how we recommend people get started so that they can try one of everything and, you know, get a sampling of everything. That if you have VIPs who come in, 3 of each at 500 a pop, that is 1,500 in volume. Does that math make sense? Okay. So with that being said, how do we start calculating commission? So we've got 1,500 of total volume. Now what we're going to do is that we're going to times that by this magic number of 0.7. Now 0.7 is the average commissionable volume across all of the Zallevo master formulations. Some it's more than 7, some it's a little bit less than 7, but on average it's 0.7. And so like we talked about with volume, that's like your revenue. CV or commissionable volume, that is like your gross sales, right? And this is what the percentages are based off of. So when we times 1,500 by 0.7, that gives us 1,050 of commissionable volume. So does that make sense how we got to that point? Because I don't want to lose people here. Okay, and if it doesn't make sense, let me know. I think that I'm not seeing. Okay, let me know in the chat or anything if it doesn't make sense. So this is how we get to the commissionable volume. Now we take that 1,050. So what you see here, so we're taking 25% of the CV, timesing that by 25% because we unlocked, how much volume do we have? We have 1,500 in volume. So does that mean that we unlocked the top tier of VV? Yes, it does. So 1,050 times 25%, that is our VV tier. That gives us residual commission of $262.50. Now, as long as your volume stays at or above 1,500, that $262.50 is going to keep coming back to you and keep coming back to you and keep coming back to you month in and month out, so long as your volume stays constant. So that's great. We've made 262. Now, how do we get to 500? Well, the simple and most straightforward way to do that is to simply double that. So we bring in 6 customers at 500. And this is how the math works out there. So we've got 3,000 of total volume. We times that by 0.7, which is going to get us our commissionable volume amount of 2,100. Now, is 2,100 above or below 1,500? It's above, right? So that we've unlocked the 25% tier of commissions. And that gets us to 525 of residual monthly commissions. Now, what can you do with $500 per month? Like, let me know in the chat. Like, what can you do with $500 per month? Like, studies show that for most Americans, $500 per month can literally keep people from getting a divorce because it creates enough financial breathing room that money's not so tight. There's a study that was done recently that said that I believe it was 42% of Americans don't have $400 in reserve in the event of financial emergency. And so is $500, is it a big deal? Can it be a big deal? Yeah, it can be huge. And so we're not done yet, and I'm about to blow your mind. I promise you, you're gonna like what I'm about to show you. But how many of you have got your money's worth so far from the call, our conversation today, right? So we just showed you a simple path of how you can make 525 residually. And again, all you got to do, that volume's got to be 3,000. As long as it's 3,000 and above, you're going to get $525 residual monthly. Does that sound like awesome or what? It's amazing, right? Some of the things that people said take new classes, travel, pay off debt. Absolutely. Travel. Yeah, Marty just said 500 per month is 6,000 per year. Try asking the boss for that raise. Yeah, that might be a steep thing. You can give yourself a raise right there. So if you guys like 500 of monthly residual income, then I think you're going to like this thing that I call the fast track to financial freedom. And this is where the money math is about to make sense. Now, I'm someone who in my math classes, I got like C's and B's in most of my math classes, but that's because in like high school, they didn't have you do math that had dollar signs in front. When I got to college, they started having me do this math with dollar signs in front. And then suddenly math got really interesting to me. And I was like, oh, I can do this kind of math. And so although I think I got like a C in geometry, I think that I was like at the top of my class when I got into statistics in college, because then I actually cared about what the math was doing. I didn't care to figure out the hypotenuse and the angle of this. But then suddenly I was like, oh, money math. I like this kind of math. How many of you like math with dollar signs tied to it? I'm right there with you. So let me stop sharing this screen and we are going to do some money math. And I'm going to share desktop number 3. So now that we've kind of laid this foundation here of, we understand what customers are, we understand what the heck this Zallevo thing is, right? So if you were to bring in 3 new, and let me zoom in because this might not be super easy to see. Is that helpful to be zoomed in that far now? Okay, so here's some of our inputs. So this is a calculator that we're gonna adjust some numbers. Now you'll see here, these numbers are provided for estimates only, just for educational purposes. These are not guarantees of actual income or financial earnings, right? But this does work if you do. So I will say that. If you were to bring in new enrollments, and what do I mean by new enrollment? Someone signs up as a new customer or as a new wellness partner. Doesn't really matter. I guess in this instance, it does matter. Excuse me. It's your VIPs, your customers. So if you have 3 new customers that come in on a monthly basis, and their average order is 300, that's what we mean by their sign up ACV is 300. Then their ongoing ACV, so meaning their recurring order, because how many of you, I know this was really embarrassing for all of you to admit, how many of you plan on eating next month too? Yeah, okay. And how many of you plan on knowing people who are probably going to need to eat next month? Okay, all right, sounds fair. Okay, I appreciate how personal we've been able to be about that, because I know that that's just, can be a big thing. So someone signs up with on average $300, and then they default to $200 after that. And these numbers are very typical for what we see here at Zallevo. In fact, we have some leaders who are on the call who they actually, this first number that they like absolutely say it's got to be 500, but we're going to be conservative. We can play with some of these numbers here in just a second. We're going to be conservative, and this is actually lower than our average sign up value usually is. Generally, it's 320, sometimes up to 380, somewhere in there. So we're going to be conservative at 300 of a sign up value, but the ongoing ACV, that's like pretty darn consistent across the board. And so I didn't feel the need to, sometimes sign up at ACV fluctuates, but ongoing ACV doesn't really. So do those first 3 numbers make sense? Is anyone confused by that? If you're confused, raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. Cool. Now, this last thing that I'll say is the retention rate. Now, although you and most of the people that you know are probably going to need to eat today and tomorrow and even the next month, is everyone forever and always going to stay on, are they going to keep ordering? Probably not. That's just human nature. People don't always stick with things and all kinds of things. So what we're assuming for in this calculator is a 60% retention rate, meaning 6 out of every, so if you enrolled 10 people, 6 out of 10 are going to stick. Does that make sense when we say a 60% retention rate? 6 out of 10 people are going to stick. Okay. So now that we understand what these inputs are, should we talk some money math? You guys like money math? Okay. So let's look at what this looks like at month 1. Now, here's what I will say is that we need to legally and for compliance reasons and yada, 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 we need to show you all of these numbers here. But where you probably actually care is the numbers here in green, right? Now, these low range commissions that you see here, this is if the retention rate is at 60%. The high range commissions, which as we get into this, you'll see that that gap changes a little bit. The high range commissions is like in the perfect world, if no one ever stopped ordering, that they just like they stayed on ordering forever and always, right? And so that's where we have the high and the low. And then the middle is just the average between those two numbers. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So here's how these numbers look. If you have 3, and let's make sure that you're still awake. How many enrollments on a monthly basis? Hold it up. 3? Okay, great. So month 1, you're looking at an average commission of about $95. Month 2, $179. But again, this is residual, mind you. $272 month 3. Like, that's not bad. That's like, that could be a car payment, right? Like that's, I think that my wife's car payment is somewhere in that range, right? That could do some great stuff for a household income. By month 4, average commission's $378. By month 5, it's $462. By month 6, it's $546. Month 7, it's $630. Month 8, we're at $714. Month 9, we're at $798. Month 10, we're at $882. Month 11, we're at $966. And at month 12, we're at $1,050. Now, some people, maybe like a year's worth of work for only $1,000 a month. And I would challenge you, if that's your mindset, I'm going to challenge you. I think that you're maybe stuck in some of that gravitational effect of the left-hand side of the quadrant of the poor or the middle class, because this is $1,050 of residual income, meaning this keeps coming in month after month after month after month after month. As long as your volumes stay the same, month after month after month after month. Now, for some people, this is going to pay the rent or the mortgage or close to it. For other people, it's going to pay a significant chunk of the mortgage. And so by the end of year 1, you have $1,050 of monthly residual income. Is that cool or is that cool? I think that that's really cool. So, but I've got a question for you. What do you think that's going to look like in the future? What about 2 years in? What about 3 years in? Does anyone want to see those numbers, or you're like, nah, I'm good? Are you sure? Because like we could call it good. Like I'm running a little bit overtime, but I think that Jill might like throw something at me if I don't keep going. So here's the thing, and these are some graphs that we have that kind of show visually what that looks like and whatnot. But let's look at year 2. So if this process of, and again, how many people are we enrolling per month? 3. What are they signing up at? How much are they spending on sign up? 300, right? And then what are they defaulting to for their ongoing order? 200, right? And what's our retention rate? 60%. It's funny to see you guys, like you're, I'm getting YMCA vibes here. So I love it. So year 2, our average monthly commission is $2,100 per month. That's going to pay the rent or the mortgage in a lot of people's instances. Year 3, we're at $3,150 per month, or $37,800 per year. Now, if you Google what the average, retirement is, you're going to get, depending on which source you're looking at and which data they're pulling and so on and so forth, you're going to get some sort of result that looks something like this. Now, and it also varies a tremendous degree by state of what the average income in retirement is, and things like that. But on average in America, it's roughly $42,000 per year. And people work 30 to 45 years to be able to build up retirement income of that amount. Now, we're just under that for our average, but maybe you're above average. And maybe you enroll 4 people a month or 5 people a month. But either way, by year 3, you are right there in that range of having enough residual income to be pretty darn close to that retirement income. So if it took you 3 years to do this and it took you 30 years to do this, is that 10 times faster? Yes or no? Yes. So if you go to your middle-class financial advisor, are they going to think that this is real? Probably not. They're going to tell you that it's one of those pyramid things. It's one of them scams, right? But my friends, this is a very simple approach to being able to retire in 3 years. And I'll let you in on a little secret. Either way, the time is going to pass. Either way, the time is going to pass, meaning that 3 years are going to come and go. And based off the decisions that you make today, that's going to dictate where you end up 3 years from now. How many of you want to have results like this or even greater in 3 years? Yeah. How many of you feel like it's more reasonable to commit to a 3-year plan than a 30-year plan? Yeah? And now let's take this out a few years. By year 4, we're there at 50,000 of annual income. We're above the average retirement income, or $4,200 a month. Year 5, we're at 5,200 a month, or 63,000 of income. Year 6, we're at 75. Oh, I'm going to break my formulas. Don't do that. Year 6, we're at 75,000 of annual income, or 6,300 a month. In year 7, we're at 88,200 of annual income. How many of you like those kind of numbers? And here's the thing, guys. These are very conservative numbers. I believe that every single person on this call, whether you have ever done business or not, is capable of doing 3 enrollments or more per month, especially when you plug into a system and a platform like we have here at Zallevo. But let's get a little bit crazy, right? Let's say that you do 5 enrollments per month. Is that in the realm of possibility? Is that like, oh no, Mitch, heavens no. I couldn't get 5 people to eat food on a monthly basis. I couldn't do that, right? I think that it's reasonable, right? I'm going to leave that ACV alone, although we do have some wellness partners who that is what they do, but we're going to stay conservative here. So 5 monthly enrollments. Let's look at year 1. So you do 5 enrollments. Where were we at with 3 enrollments? We're at like $1,000, just over $1,000 of an average commission. So we're almost at 2,000. We're at $1,750. That's more than my mortgage. I'll cover my mortgage. Hey, there we go. Now let's look at year 2. What? We're retired in 2 years now? Year 3, we're at 63,000. Year 4, we're at 84,000. Year 5, we're at 105. Year 6, we're at 126. Year 7, we're at 147. We're at almost 150 grand of residual income. Is this making sense? Now, one of the reasons, and Drew just put a great thing in the chat. So if you've got questions, feel free to type it in the chat box, and we're going to go do Q&A here in just a minute. But let us know if you've got questions. The whole reason why Brandon Broadwater started this company, I was actually fortunate enough to be there when he walked into the room, because I was working with Brandon in our previous business venture. And he walked in the room and he was like, guys, we got to give people a financial vehicle. We've got to create a new company. I was like, dude, you're crazy. Like, we've got a great business right now. Like, it's doing a couple million a year. Like, it's very successful. Like, I'm okay. We're fine. Let's just go. And he's like, no. He's like, we've got to set people free financially. And we were doing that. Like, we were helping people get great results. But I'm so glad that Brandon had the vision to help set people free financially and give them a platform to do so. Because what we were doing before was coaching and training, and it was great. Don't get me wrong. Like, some other time I can tell you stories of the incredible things that happened through the coaching and training, but we were giving people coaching and training and then sending them off into their life and hope that they like remember and they figure it out and they apply it and all of this stuff. And Brandon's like, we've got to provide a platform. We've got to provide a financial vehicle for people. And I didn't have the same foresight that he did at the time, but this was the type of foresight. And when Brandon has said things like, I want to help people get results 5 to 10 times faster, this is what makes it possible. Zallevo is what makes it possible for people to get results 5 to 10 times faster in their life. And I'm so grateful that Brandon had the insight and the courage and the faith to step forward and to create this platform. And how many of you are grateful as well now that you start to see these numbers? I love it. I love it. Now, I'm going to show you one more bit of numbers, because I believe that some people that are here, I believe that everyone's capable of doing 3, and I think that everyone's probably capable of doing 5. It might take you some time to get to 5 on average, but here's another thing. I know that we got people who are on this call right now who are capable of doing 10 a month. Anyone want to see what the numbers look like when you do 10 a month? Yeah, might be a stretch for some people, but we've got people on this call that I know can do 10 a month. By the end of year 1, if you're doing, again, 10 enrollments, 300 ACV, 200 ongoing, 60% retention rate. By the end of year 1, you have $3,500 of monthly income. $3,500 of monthly income. Like, that's, you're getting up there as far as, like, you're almost retired. Let's look at year 2. Year 2, you're at $84,000 of annual income, or $7,000 a month. And my friends, we have people on this call who this is a reality for. They're already making this kind of money. Is that cool, or is that cool? And so this isn't some hypothetical of like, could someone do this? Has anyone ever done it before? The 4-minute mile has already been broken. People are making this kind of money, right? So you're enrolling 10 people a month. By year 3, you're making $10,500 per month. That is a very comfortable retirement. To generate that type of income in traditional financial services, you need to have multiple millions of dollars as a nest egg to generate that kind of income, especially in today's environment of interest rates. Year 4, you're at 14,000. Year 5, you're at 17,000. Year 16, you're at 21,000. Year 7, you're at 24,500, or just shy of 300 grand. How many of you are so excited right now? I would love to hear from 1 or 2 people to go ahead and unmute yourselves and tell me why you're excited about what you've seen here.
Okay, well, I'll go first. So I get so excited, and like Drew just put in the chat, this is not smoke and mirrors. Like, this is not the numbers. And that's what I love, is that the numbers don't lie. The numbers are here to stay. And it gets me excited because when I decided to do network marketing, my biggest why was to help families have financial options. And so last weekend, when I was there at corporate and saw the numbers, I mean, I knew it could happen, but seeing the numbers, I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to get this out there so that people see that it's reality and that network marketing is the coolest thing since sliced bread. Like, it just is. And so thank you, Mitch, and Drew for putting the numbers together and for showing us what really can be done.
I love that. Thank you, Jill. I'd love to hear from maybe one other person, and then we're going to shift gears and show you some other stuff that you're also going to love. Udana, I think I saw you unmute. Go for it.
Yeah. No, I've actually done this, and it's marvelous. And when I started in the industry, I just didn't look right or left. And I want to make a suggestion. You can go slow, but once you get your systems in place and you kind of know what you're doing and you got it fitting you, then you start going and you just put your blinders on, maybe a month at a time, and just go full bore. And what happens is it gets a momentum of its own. And I started literally with 46 cents in the bank. So I didn't have any backup or anything, but I knew I was going to eat. And I went on, and within about, it was a couple of years, I was making 100 grand a year, but it was up to, multiples. And then I could step back and it still kept paying me. There's nothing like it. And I had financial people saying, "Oh my God, what did you do?" And I had people telling me I was crazy. My family wouldn't talk to me, but they weren't going to pay my light bill. And I ended up on vacation for 7 years, 6 or 7 years, just basically money pouring in so I could do some more deep inner work. And so I just want to say that it's really real, guys. But you have to put your blinders on at some point. I treated it as though I had mortgaged the house and bought a franchise, which is a pretty silly thing to do compared to this, because you buy yourself an 80-hour-a-week job managing teenagers. Something like this. But you got to really, if you want to make that kind of money, I suggest you really focus and you spend time every day visualizing it being done. You're changing who you are and your vibration. I call it your vibrational signature around you, who you're attracting and what you say and who you're being when you're doing what you're doing. So I just want to say, this is such an opportunity, especially with these products, and it's for real. So back to you. That's what I had.
I just want to add really quick that this is just one of our ways to make income here. I know we put it in our thunder. Oh, sorry. Okay, you know what?
I'm teasing.
You know what? Never mind. Forget.
Go for it.
Forget I said that, and we'll go on to Jim.
I gotta tease you, Jill. I gotta tease you. But you're spot on. You're 100% right. And I want to comment on something that Udana said. Udana, you were making the money, and your family told you you're crazy. Right? Like it was a reality that you were making the money and people told you that you're crazy. When I talk about the gravitational effect of the poor and the middle class and the rich and the abundant, that's what I'm talking about. If someone doesn't see kind of what we've had this conversation about today, most people aren't going to understand it. And they're going to be like, oh, you got drinking the Kool-Aid and you're crazy and da-da-da-da-da, right? But my friends, this is real. People are already doing this, and this is what we're here for, is to help set people free financially. And so thank you for sharing your story, Udana and Jill. We appreciate you. So with that being said, to Jill's point, and Jill, I am totally teasing you about stealing my thunder. Let me share.
Can I steal a little bit of your thunder?
By all means, Jim.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This company made it possible to make income immediately with what your thunder is about. And I hope you take a minute to explain the difference between residual and the monthly income that can be generated while you are building your residual. That was what was phenomenal, because 18 years to build my residual with my former experience was amazing, to be able to retire and know that I was out of debt at this point and could now lean back and have the income continue on from what I had done 18 years earlier and built all the way up. And to be able to come so close to matching that in such a short time for me was beyond belief. Your 3-year thing versus 18 years is magnificent. But don't leave out all of those other sources of income that come through this payout program that are also just as geniuses, because the new person who really puts in the effort can make an income at this point, building for the residual. And I'll add that and be quiet.
I love that. Thank you, Jim. And what a great point, guys. This is one. How many? Hold up number one. I need everybody's attention. Hold up number one. This is just one component of this thing called the Zallevo compensation plan. It's one. We haven't even talked about this thing called 3 and free product bonus, to where you can get product credit to get your products for free. We haven't even talked about earning a rebate back on your personal order on top of the 3 and free. We haven't talked about fast advancement bonus. We haven't talked about fast start commissions. We haven't talked about the $100 structure bonus. We haven't talked about the $500 structure bonus. We haven't talked about unilevel pay and team commissions. This is where if you choose to build a team and have other people who are introducing others to Zallevo master formulations, then you can also, as you help them succeed, that helps you succeed, to where you can earn commissions as your team brings in volume. That's called leverage, my friends. And that's one thing that the rich and the abundant understand, is this thing called leverage. And so that's unilevel pay. So when your team succeeds, you succeed. So are you going to help your team win? I had a person who recently was like, hey, I'm not really getting the help and the support from the person who enrolled me and brought me into the business. And like, I had to go like this, because I was like, you've got to be kidding me. There's a person who brought a team member on. This team member wants to run, wants to grow, and this person is not supporting them. Like, that team member is basically going to them and being like, hey, can I make you more money? And then that person who brought them in was like, nah, I'm good. Right? Like, that's crazy. So there's unilevel pay, team commission. There's platinum arrival bonus. There's unlimited platinum arrival bonus. There's a check match bonus, and there's an infinity bonus. So how many other ways do you see on the screen here to make money with Zallevo? 11 other ways. And what we've talked about today is just one of the ways to make money. Going back to this point, the poor and middle class, the gravitational effect of the left-hand side of the quadrant, they're stuck in this world of accumulation and depletion. And so in this industry or in this business model, most compensation plans are intentionally designed to keep you stuck on the hamster wheel of living off of front-end bonuses. That is the purpose, because that makes the company more money, but it never sets the person free. Here at Zallevo, this compensation plan was designed by a guy who had created financial freedom by the age of 28 and was a millionaire by 30, aka Brandon Broadwater. And he understood residual income. And so he's like, I want to help other people do what I have done. I want to help other people create residual income. And so the way that this compensation plan is designed is different from other companies in the industry, from other opportunities that are out there. And it's different in the sense of residual income. As Jim mentioned, took 18 years to build up some residual income, right? You can build up residual income in a very fast period of time, because this vehicle that we've provided here is totally different than any other vehicle that you'll look at elsewhere. And it's built for residual income.